Sophia Hay sat on the bed and, with me watching, slowly slid the shirt from her shoulders. Her body was perfect. For the first time, the sunlight streaming through the window seemed to take on a shape. "We can start whenever you're ready, Ethan." I nodded, moving my hands forward to begin. My face, however, remained a carefully constructed mask of professional indifference. There was a reason for my restraint. Sophia's husband, Julian Croft, was standing directly behind me, his silence a cold weight in the room. "1. My name is Ethan Cole, and I am a blind lactation consultant. Of course, aside from the blindness, my skills are 100% genuine. As the name implies, my job is to help new mothers who are dealing with blocked milk ducts, a painful condition that requires specialized massage to resolve. But because the work involves direct physical contact, male consultants aren't exactly welcomed with open arms. In fact, we're often met with outright hostility from the fathers. After a rough time in college, I didn't get into my first choice program and ended up with a degree in kinesiology, specializing in manual therapy. It sounds fancy, but it basically qualified me for massage and lactation work. After graduation, I got a job at a wellness center, but I barely got any clients. Most people, understandably, requested a female consultant. It wasn't working, so I reinvented myself. I moved to a new city, put on a pair of dark glasses, and started over as a blind lactation consultant. Suddenly, the prejudice vanished. That, combined with my actual skill, earned me a stream of positive reviews and repeat clients. Sophia Hayes was one of those regulars. She had specifically requested me for this appointment. "Yes, Ethan, right there," she murmured, her eyes closed in a state of blissful relief. "It's been so tender lately." The pressure was killing me. Having worked together before, Sophia was completely at ease, letting out soft sighs of comfort as I worked. She was young, maybe 27 or 28, that perfect age where a woman's confidence is in full bloom. Her face was exquisite, and even after recently giving birth, her figure was still incredible. Her long, pale legs, stimulated by the massage, shifted and flexed gently on the sheets. I kept my head down, holding my breath, focusing on the firm softness in my hands as I methodically increased the pressure. Halfway through the session, sweat was beading on my forehead. Behind me, Julian's cold voice suddenly cut through the silence. "Ethan, stop." My hands froze. "Before you continue touching my wife, I think a simple disinfection protocol is in order." Julian brought over a bowl of water. Large chunks of ice floated in it, radiating a visible chill. "This is for my wife's health and safety," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You don't mind, do you?" Sophia sat up slightly. "Julian, don't be ridiculous. Ethan is a professional." "Darling," Julian interrupted, his voice a soft, gentle command. "I'm just being protective of what's mine." I said nothing. I plunged my hands into the ice water. A piercing cold shot on my fingers and straight to my skull. I clenched my jaw, washing my hands over and over again as the ice burned my skin. Julian produced a digital thermometer, clipping it between my fingers. "Not cold enough, Ethan. Scientific studies show that lower temperatures are more effective at inhibiting bacterial activity." Another 5 minutes. My hands were numb, red, and almost completely without feeling. Only when the thermometer beeped did he nod with satisfaction. "There, you may continue now. And remember," he added, his voice dropping, "be professional." I began the massage again with hands I could barely feel. Just then, the baby's cries from the next room grew louder. Julian's brow furrowed. He pulled out his iPhone and opened an app. "Ethan, your services are causing a noise violation." He shoved a phone in my face. It was a sound meter app, its red numbers jumping angrily. "As a penalty, I'm cutting your fee in half. Or, if you prefer, you can bark 3 times like a dog." I think my wife would find that amusing. "Julian," Sophia finally snapped, grabbing a pillow and hurling it at him. "What is wrong with you? Stop bullying him." "Darling, don't be upset." Julian dodged the pillow with practiced ease, that infuriating, civilized smile still on his face. "See, I'm negotiating with him. The choice is his." I squeezed my numb hands into fists, then forced them to relax. "Mr. Croft, I say, my voice flat. I'll take the first option. The massage finally ended. As I packed my toolbox to leave, the sound of several bills hitting the floor echoed in the quiet room. Julian used the pointed toe of his expensive, custom-made leather shoe to grind the cash into the dusty floor. Did you hear that, Ethan? Your money fell. You'll have to find it yourself. I crouched down, my fingers searching the cold, smooth hardwood. Time and again, I felt the edge of a bill, only for him to nudge it away with the tip of his shoe. I could smell the expensive cologne on him, mingling with the lingering chill of ice water on my fingertips. It created a nauseating odor of pure humiliation. Finally, my fingers closed around the bills. I picked them up one by one and put them in my pocket. I walked out of that luxurious mansion with my toolbox on my back, my shirt completely soaked through with cold sweat. My phone vibrated. It was a Venmo notification from Sophia Hayes for 3 times the amount of my fee. The note had only 5 words. I'm so sorry, and thank you. Chapter 2. Tango Under a Watchful Eye. For the second appointment, the location had changed. Julian had scheduled the session at his private club, in a room that was stark white. The walls were as smooth and reflective as mirrors. He handed me a neatly folded set of clothes. Put these on, Ethan. It's a club rule. Hygiene is paramount. It was a white uniform, but the fabric was so thin it was nearly transparent. After changing, the silhouette of my body was vaguely visible under the bright lights. Julian had me turn around, as if admiring a piece of art on display. See, darling, this is much cleaner. Everything is visible inside and out. It gives one a sense of security, don't you think? He said to Sophia, who was already on the massage table. Sophia didn't answer him. She just buried her face in the pillow. Before I began, Julian brought in an open, cheap-looking takeout container and placed it on the small table next to me. A rancid, oily smell immediately filled my nostrils. I could hear something moving inside it. Smell that, Ethan? My wife has a sensitive stomach these days. She can't be around greasy food. I trust you didn't eat anything. Unclean before coming here. I maintained my blind composure, my face a blank slate. Yes, Mr. Croft. I smell it. A sour, rancid odor of cheap grease and heated plastic. If I'm not mistaken, it smells like low-grade pork fried in old, reused oil. It's likely been sitting out for more than 12 hours. I could even hear the faint scratching sound of a cockroach crawling across the inside of the plastic container. Julian's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. I started the massage. This time, Sophia was very still. As my fingers made contact with her skin, I felt her finger tap a distinct, deliberate rhythm on the back of my hand. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short. SOS in Morse code. She was asking for help, and she was warning me. I understood instantly. The room was bugged, full of hidden cameras. I continued the massage, my movement steady, but my mind was racing. I couldn't just call out the cameras. That would blow my cover. I had to find a way to do it as a blind man. Mr. Croft, I said suddenly. The electromagnetic environment in this room. It might not be ideal for a newborn. Julian froze. What do you mean? I can hear a persistent, high-frequency electrical hum. It's very faint. It seems to be coming from the 4 corners of the room and 1 point in the center of the ceiling. In my field, we become very sensitive to these things. Prolonged exposure to this frequency can disrupt the body's bioelectric field, especially in infants. I used the most professional jargon I could think of to deliver the most direct threat possible. The room fell completely silent. Sophia's tapping stopped. Julian didn't speak, but I could feel his gaze on me, hot enough to burn holes. I had taken his meticulously planned trap and, in a way he couldn't possibly refute, turned it into a joke. After the session, I changed back into my own clothes. As I was leaving the room, Julian spoke from behind me. In my domain, I know the gender of every fly that buzzes in. I'd advise you not to get any ideas you shouldn't have. Chapter 3. The Public Auction of Dignity. Julian's games escalated. For the 3rd session, he invited a group of his friends over to the house. The living room was thick with the smell of expensive whiskey, cigars, and the loud, obnoxious laughter of rich men. He led me to the center of the room and instructed me to begin Sophia's session right there, in front of everyone. "Gentlemen, let me show you something interesting," Julian announced, like a ringmaster at a circus. "My wife's exclusive male lactation consultant. He's blind, and his technique is world-class." The gazes of his guests felt like spotlights, filled with a morbid curiosity and undisguised vulgarity. "Damn, Julian, you really know how to live. Where do you even find this guy? Hey, is he really blind? Let me see." A drunk man suddenly lurched forward, thrusting a lit cigar toward my face. I felt the wave of intense heat and instinctively flinched away, but the tip of my eyebrow was still singed. The smell of burnt hair filled the air. "Haha, Rick, you lose." Julian clapped his hands in delight. "He can't see the light, but he can feel the heat. You owe him a drink. Here, have this one on me." As an apology to Ethan, he handed a glass of whiskey to the man, his gesture a mockery of an apology. My humiliation had become their party game. Sophia's body was trembling slightly under my hands. She was wearing a modest tracksuit, yet she might as well have been stripped naked and put on display. Julian picked up a slice of cantaloupe and offered it to Sophia's lips. She refused to open her mouth. Unfazed, Julian turned and offered the fruit to me. "You've worked hard, Ethan. Have a piece of fruit." I couldn't refuse. The moment I opened my mouth to accept it, Julian turned to his friends and said, "You see, my wife has such a kind heart, but in our house, we typically only hand-feed the pets." The room erupted in a chorus of derisive laughter. The remark was a poison dart, hitting both Sophia and me at the same time. I could feel the air leave her lungs. My dignity was being auctioned off to the highest bidder, trampled for sport. My tolerance had reached its breaking point. I stopped what I was doing and turned my head in the direction of the man who had burned me, Rick Davison. "Mr. Davison," I said. My voice was quiet, but it sliced through the noise, silencing the room. "Besides the vanilla notes of your Cuban cigar, I also detect a faint scent of bitter almonds and ether on you. My pharmacology professor in college taught us that those are the primary chemical markers for a party drug called Azure Dream." Rick Davison's face went white. "That stuff can produce euphoric hallucinations in the short term," I continued, my voice calm and clinical. "But with long-term use, it attacks the peripheral nervous system, leading to irreversible cardiac arrhythmia and temporary memory loss. The most common side effect, of course, is erectile dysfunction. Mr. Davison, have you been feeling unable to perform lately?" The silence in the room was absolute. I could hear Davison's heavy breathing and the sharp clink of a glass dropping to the floor. I couldn't see his expression, but I knew my words had been a scalpel, precisely dissecting his most private and shameful secret. I had successfully ruined Julian's party. He walked over to me, his voice a low, menacing whisper only I could hear. "Ethan Cole, you're very interesting. Truly." He leaned in closer. "And you will pay a price for being so interesting." Julian's revenge came faster and more brutally than I could have imagined. A week later, I got a call from my old mentor, Professor Wallace. He had pulled some strings to get me a spot, a 15-minute live demonstration at the annual Symposium for Integrative Physical Therapy in Chicago. This was the opportunity one had dreamed of. It was my one and only chance to shed the blind persona and stand on a legitimate academic stage as a professional. "Ethan, prepare for this. This is a turning point for your entire career," Professor Wallace said, his voice brimming with excitement. I hung up, my hands trembling. Just then, a message came through from an unknown number. It was Sophia. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. Julian is a controlling monster. Humiliating you is his way of humiliating me. Think of this symposium as my way of helping you, and helping myself. I'll be your demonstration model." I stared at the message, hesitating for a long moment before typing back a single word. Okay. I needed this chance too badly to refuse. I thought this was the beginning of my comeback, a ray of hope. On the day of the symposium, I stood under the spotlights wearing a sharp, tailored suit and no sunglasses. The audience was filled with the nation's top experts and academics. Professor Wallace was in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. Sophia sat bravely on the stage with me, ready to be my model. My heart hammered against my ribs, from nerves, but mostly from an exhilarating sense of possibility. I was about to prove myself. "Good afternoon," distinguished experts and colleagues. My name is Ethan Cole. The topic of my demonstration today is postpartum connective tissue release technique based on myofascial chain theory. The demonstration went perfectly. I could see heads nodding in approval throughout the audience. Success was within my grasp. Just as I was about to deliver my concluding remarks, the massive LED screen behind me flickered. The lights in the auditorium dimmed. The screen was no longer displaying my presentation slides. Instead, it was playing a video. The setting was my own small rental apartment. The camera angle was fixed, clearly a hidden camera. In the video, I wasn't wearing sunglasses or holding a white cane. I walked confidently to my bookshelf, pulled out a book, and sat on the sofa to read. I navigated my laptop with ease, browsing websites and video chatting with friends. It was me in my most authentic, relaxed, everyday life. The life of a perfectly sighted person. A murmur began to ripple through the audience, a rising tide of whispers. All the blood in my body turned to ice. I saw Professor Wallace's face shift from confusion to shock, then to utter disbelief. I saw Sophia, her hand clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with despair. The video continued. For the final shot, the camera performed a slow, cruel zoom. In the footage, it was as if I sensed something, looking up and staring directly into the hidden lens. My eyes were clear, bright, and completely devoid of any sign of blindness. The screen cut to black. The auditorium erupted. Accusations, questions, and the frantic clicking of camera shutters rained down on me like 1,000 sharp knives. I stood alone on a dark stage, flayed alive by the eyes of the world. Just then, the doors at the back of the hall swung open. A beam of light cut through the darkness, silhouetting a tall figure. Julian Croft walked in, wearing a serene, cruel smile, like a man admiring his masterpiece. My hope, my dignity, my future, my entire life was being sacrificed in a public execution he had orchestrated, served up for the whole world to see. Fraud, a disgrace to the profession. Get off the stage. The insults hailed down on me. I stood in the center of the stage, unable to feel the warmth of the spotlights. Only a profound, soul-deep cold. Run. Where could I possibly run? I couldn't run. I took off the clear-lensed glasses I wore, a prop to complete my blind persona, and faced the roaring crowd. My name is Ethan Cole, I said, my voice shaking but every word clear. And it's true. I'm not blind. I pretended because in this industry, being a male lactation consultant is treated like a crime. I was rejected, questioned, and even had the police called on me countless times, simply because of my gender. I just wanted to make a living with my skills. Is that so wrong? No one answered. The uproar continued. Suddenly, Sophia shot up from her chair, ran to my side, and grabbed a microphone. He's the one who's wrong. What about the psycho who hides behind a screen, installs secret cameras, and broadcasts someone's private life to the world? Her voice was sharp and loud, ringing with a newfound ferocity. Do you people know what gaslighting is? That's him, Julian Croft. He uses love as a weapon for high-level abuse. He treats me like property and anyone who comes near me as a threat. Today he can destroy Ethan like this, and tomorrow he'll do the same to me, or to any one of you. This is classic narcissistic abuse. It's 2025, people. This old money, controlling behavior is a major red flag. It's giving top-tier toxic masculinity. The focus of the entire auditorium instantly shifted from me to Sophia and, finally, to Julian at the back of the room. Julian's smile was gone, frozen on his face. He never expected his caged bird to peck back so fiercely in public. Silence. A commanding female voice cut through the noise. From the front row, a woman with silver hair and an elegant, authoritative air stood up. She was Dr. Evelyn Reed, the chair of the symposium and a titan in the field of physical therapy. Academic fraud is a matter for the review board to decide, she announced, her voice resonating with power. But I have a question. Who gave this man Mr. Croft the authority to invade someone's privacy and carry out a public lynching at a professional academic symposium? Dr. Reed's words hung in the air, and the chaos slowly subsided. Security guards approached Julian and escorted him from the premises. My demonstration privileges were, of course, revoked. After the session ended, I sat alone in the empty backstage area, feeling like a hollowed-out shell. Dr. Reed walked in and handed me a bottle of water. I watched your technique. It's excellent. Better than many classically trained therapists with decades of experience, she said simply. I don't care if you're blind or not. I recognize talent. Get your personal life sorted out. When it's clean, come find me. She left me with those words. I gripped the cold water bottle, feeling a flicker of warmth return to my fingertips. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Julian. Did you enjoy your graduation present? I stared at the text for a long second, then deleted it and blocked his number. A fire, small but fierce, was rekindling in the ashes. Chapter 6. The Devil's Pen. 3 days later, I met Sophia in the corner of a quiet coffee shop. She had cut her hair short and was dressed in a sharp pantsuit. She looked like a different person. I'm going to divorce him, she said, getting straight to the point. I'll walk away with nothing if I have to. I've had enough. Ethan, I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. It's not your fault, I said, shaking my head. This isn't about blame anymore. This is about making him pay. Sophia looked at me, her expression doubtful. How? He has money, connections, the best lawyers. We can't win against that. Does he have a weakness? I asked. Every narcissist has a weak spot. Sophia thought for a long time. Then her eyes lit up with a memory. 1. He's extremely arrogant, but also incredibly paranoid. He loves to record things, especially important conversations. He calls it preserving a record for decision-making, but really it's about collecting leverage and controlling people. She leaned forward. He has this fountain pen, custom-made in Germany. He takes it everywhere. That pen, it's a digital recorder. The recording pen. I closed my eyes. The memories of my previous visits to their house flooded my mind, not as images, but as sounds. My hearing, honed to an extraordinary degree by years of feigning blindness, had created a perfect sonic map. I could hear the faint creak of the 3rd and 7th floorboards in Julian's study. I could hear the unique, dry friction of the 2nd drawer from the right in his desk, the one that needed oiling. I could even hear the 6 distinct tones of his safe combination, each button pressed with a slightly different pressure and cadence. Click, 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 tap, click, tap. I even recalled the phone call he took on the balcony during the party, when he thought no one was listening. The person on the other end was his vice president, Leo Vance. Julian's tone wasn't one of a boss giving orders, but of a conspirator, simultaneously placating and threatening. Leo, the numbers on the books. Just do it my way. We've been friends for decades. I'll take care of you. But you need to remember, we're in the same boat now. The sound map in my head was complete. I opened my eyes. The pen, I said to Sophia, and the secrets to his company are in his office safe. I'm going to get them. Chapter 7. A tooth in the tiger's mouth. The plan was set for Friday night. Sophia played her part to perfection. Julian, I want a divorce. I listened through the tiny microphone I had given her, hearing her voice roar from the downstairs living room. You're a controlling monster. You destroyed my friend just to get at me. I'm leaving you, and I'm taking half of everything. Half the company stock is marital property, and I want it. The sound of shattering plates followed, then a woman's desperate sobs and a man's furious bellows. It was a flawless, terrifyingly realistic performance. Julian was completely enraged, his entire focus drawn to the drama unfolding downstairs. It was time. Like a ghost, I slipped into the 2nd floor study. Everything was exactly as my sound map had depicted it. I avoided the 2 creaking floorboards, opened the sticking drawer, and retrieved the safe key from its hidden compartment. Then I moved to the wall behind a large oil painting and faced the cold, steel safe. Holding my breath, my fingers flew across the keypad. Click, 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 tap, click, tap. The memory of the sounds and the reality of the touch aligned perfectly. With a soft thud, the safe door swung open. There wasn't much inside. A few stacks of documents, some expensive watches, and there, resting on a bed of black velvet, was a silver fountain pen. That was it. I grabbed the pen, but as I was about to leave, a sticky note in the corner of the safe caught my eye. On it was a string of characters that looked like a server address and a single, handwritten word, Prometheus. The fire brought down by a man who defied the gods. This was Leo Vance's secret rebellion. I pocketed the note and the pen and closed the safe. Just as I was about to retrace my steps, the shouting from downstairs stopped abruptly. A set of urgent footsteps was pounding up the stairs, heading straight for the study. Julian was coming back. My mind went blank, the hair on my arms standing on end. Where could I hide? Under the desk? Behind the curtains? No, he'd find me. In a split-second decision, I remembered the layout of the room. The walk-in closet. I darted inside, squeezing myself into a narrow gap between a rack of hanging suits and the wall. It was a perfect blind spot, both visually and spatially. The study door flew open. Julian stormed in, breathing heavily, clearly furious. He went straight to the safe, checked it, and pulled on the drawer. Then he paced back and forth across the room, cursing under his breath. The soles of his leather shoes slapped the floor less than 2 feet from where I stood. I could smell his familiar cologne, now soured by the scent of his rage. Time stretched on, each second an eternity. Finally, he seemed to calm down. He turned and left the study, slamming the door behind him. I stumbled out from my hiding place, my entire body drenched in sweat, my legs barely able to hold me up. I had done it. I had walked into the tiger's den and pulled its most venomous tooth. Chapter 8. The Doomsday Script. Using an anonymous, encrypted email service, I reached out to Leo Vance. The body of the email contained only one word: Prometheus. 30 minutes later, I got a reply. It was a decryption key and a short, simple question. Who are you? Someone Julian Croft destroyed, I wrote back, and the only person who can help you. We agreed to meet in an abandoned, half-finished building at a construction site. Leo Vance, a middle-aged man who looked honest and worn down, was far more haggard than I'd imagined. I worked for him for 20 years. I thought of him as a brother, Leo said, plugging a flash drive into the laptop I'd brought. And what did he see me as? A scapegoat, a janitor to clean up his messes. That server address you found. I paid a fortune to have someone create a mirror of his private server. It has everything. All the evidence of his illegal fundraising, financial fraud, bribery. All of it. I was waiting for the right moment, but you found it first. The moment is now, I said, and I took out the pen. I pressed the playback button. Julian's elegant, venomous voice filled the empty, concrete space. That Ethan guy, he's just a dog. If I tell him to go east, he wouldn't dare go west. The academic symposium? I'll make sure he never works in this country again. Yes, I had the cameras installed myself weeks ago. Do you think Sophia was helping him? Haha, so naive. She was just the bait I used to reel him in. A dog like that, thinking he could have hope. Pathetic. The end of the recording was a conversation with his lawyer, outlining the most vicious, legally airtight way to frame me and ruin my life. Every word was a poison needle. Leo's face grew pale as he listened. That monster. All the pieces were in place. The evidence formed a perfect, unbreakable chain. The three of us, me, Sophia, and Leo, put together the final plan. The annual shareholder meeting for his company is next Friday, Leo said. It's his biggest day of the year. All the investors, executives, and media will be there. He loves the spotlight, Sophia said, her voice ice cold. He loves a public execution. So let's give him a stage he'll never forget. The same way he pushed me into hell, I said, watching the sun set outside the unfinished window, is how he's going to fall from his heaven. As the final battle approached, my heart was, for the first time in a long time, completely calm. Chapter 9. Poetic Justice. The Croft Holdings annual shareholder meeting was a lavish affair, a gathering of the city's elite. Julian stood on stage, dressed in a bespoke suit, the very picture of success and power. He painted a grand vision for the company's future, and the crowd responded with thunderous applause. He basked in the adoration, a god among mortals. And in the next 3 years, our market value will double once again, he declared, opening his arms as if to embrace the world. At that exact moment, at the peak of his triumphant speech, the massive screen behind him flickered. The grand crystal chandeliers in the ballroom dimmed. On the screen, the familiar video from the symposium began to play. The footage of me in my apartment, perfectly sighted. A small ripple of confusion went through the audience. Julian paused, then a smug, knowing smile spread across his face. He probably thought one of his loyal employees was replaying his greatest hit, his moment of total victory. He even turned to the screen, ready to enjoy the show with his audience. But then, the video seamlessly transitioned to an audio track. It was the crystal-clear recording from a pen. That Ethan guy, he's just a dog. A dog like that, thinking he could have hope. Pathetic. Julian's smile froze. The blood drained from his face. The entire room erupted in shocked gasps. Before he could react, the screen changed again. This time, it was the evidence from the encrypted server, a waterfall of incriminating documents. Forged bank statements, illegal investment contracts, records of massive bribes to public officials. Every document bearing Julian's own signature. Distinguished shareholders, members of the press. Sophia walked calmly onto the stage, holding a microphone. My name is Sophia Hayes. As Julian Croft's legal wife, and as a long-term victim of his psychological abuse and gaslighting, I am here today to tell you that the business genius you see before you is, in fact, a monster. Julian's expression twisted from shock to a mask of pure, murderous rage. He lunged forward, but was intercepted by security guards Leo had quietly put in place. Finally, as a dead silence fell over the room, I walked onto the stage. Dr. Evelyn Reed was by my side. I was wearing a suit just as sharp as Julian's. In my hand, I held a file. Mr. Croft, good to see you again, I said, stopping directly in front of him. I handed him the file. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ethan Cole. I've been retained by Dr. Reed and several anonymous board members to act as a senior risk consultant for this company. This report details precisely how your personal criminal activities will lead to a stock price collapse, asset seizure, and the eventual bankruptcy and liquidation of Croft Holdings. You have 3 minutes to read it. My identity had transformed. I was no longer the blind masseuse he had crushed under his heel, but the senior consultant pronouncing his doom. I had used his favorite weapon, public humiliation, on his most glorious stage, and I had delivered the final blow as the very person he despised the most. He stared at me, his lips trembling, unable to form a single word. He had lost, utterly and completely. Chapter 10. A new day in the sun. The chaos of a shareholder meeting reached its crescendo with the wail of approaching sirens. The financial crimes detectives, alerted by Leo and Sophia, strode into the ballroom, their arrival illuminated by a sea of flashing cameras. They presented an arrest warrant and, in front of the entire world, snapped a pair of cold steel handcuffs onto Julian's wrists. As they led him away, his face was ashen, stripped of every last trace of his former arrogance. The verdict came swiftly. For illegal fundraising, false accusation, invasion of privacy, and a host of other charges, Julian Croft was sentenced to life in prison. The business empire he had built with such ruthless pride collapsed almost overnight, its assets liquidated in bankruptcy. Everything he held dear turned to dust. Sophia finalized the divorce. She didn't take a penny of Julian's money, wanting only her child and her freedom. With her own savings, she opened a small, charming flower shop, and a bright, easy smile returned to her face. We became the kind of friends who could always count on each other. My story, thanks to that sensational doomsday meeting, became something of a legend in my field. Dr. Evelyn Reed formally invited me to join her professional team. Together, we co-founded the country's first therapeutic center dedicated to eliminating gender bias in the industry, combining cutting-edge rehabilitation techniques with a focus on human dignity and care. I no longer needed to pretend. On opening day, the sun was bright and warm. I stood at the entrance to our new center, not wearing any sunglasses. I felt the warmth on my face and looked out at the people passing by, my gaze open and direct. All the crushed dignity, all the past humiliation, it had all become the solid foundation on which I now stood. I had been dragged down into the deepest, darkest hell. And now, with my own 2 hands, I had created a new life in the sun, not just for myself, but for others. A true legend isn't someone who never falls. It's someone who, after falling, gets back up and stands even taller than before.